started long before 1987. In 1975, I moved to Denver and taught in a barrio school on the near west side. As a group, we collectively came up with the idea of doing an interpersonal understanding program, and we named it that just out of the blue because we didn't have any other language for it, that we wanted kids to get along better. And in that program, we taught communication, cooperation, and conflict management. And I'd feed them the situation, we'd brainstorm what else could they do, what else could we teach, and we'd make up something and then we'd write a lesson about it, and that's the way the first lessons began. The results were rather dramatic. In less than a semester's time, we had completely eliminated all physical fighting in that school and reduced the verbal fighting significantly. And that's where I got the fire in my belly that said, this is what God wants of me, this is what life should be about for me.
My name is Bob Perico, and what brought me to the Conflict Center was it was a peaceful place. I mean, you learned about peace, and I felt I needed a little bit more of that in my life. And I mentioned one story about my son and I was very busy. I was cooking dinner, had 3 kids, my wife was still working, and I was getting ready to go to work and getting meals prepared. And all of a sudden, my son of 7 years old spilled a glass of milk, and I had all these things going on the burners of the stove. The telephone was ringing, and I was worried about this and that, and I yelled at him. And after I got done yelling about him spilling the milk, his eyes started to well up with tears, and he said, "Dad, didn't you ever spill anything?" And the underlying my anger was I was in fear of losing my job, and the stress of work, personal relationships, and it all just came out at that one moment. Had I been able to be aware of that, would have been a blessing.
So my name is Laura Toby. I am the school counselor at Placebridge Academy. We are the boundary school and the magnet school to serve the students who are placed here by the UN for the refugee population. So it's a very unique school in that way. Of course, you're going to just be presented with cultural differences and what's expected in interactions. It's okay to have conflicts, and we're going to have conflicts here at Placebridge Academy. It's true at any school, but again, you know, when you have different cultures, we just have to say, here, how do we solve it?
I have one student that I work with about twice a month. He's one of my special ed students, and he definitely has always had issues with conflict with peers and problem solving, and he's done a lot better this year, but he had an incident with a friend, and he got referred to the conflict center. I think it made a difference for him for sure, and he's getting along with that person and that friend, so yeah, it made a big difference for him. Kids are not always focused on their learning because they're having, you know, peer conflicts or other things going on. So I think having a special place in the school for them to deal with this, and then they can easily go back to class, I think it really helps them focus on their learning when they need to.
I'm Brenda Kazin. I'm principal at Placebridge Academy. I've been principal here for 7 years. I've been a principal for 22 years and a teacher for 7 years. So I've been around a very long time. Conflict is inevitable, but it's how children really deal with conflict that's important. And our children have come through so many different kinds of conflict in their young lives from war-torn lands. And we have different groups meeting with one another that we really need to teach them how to address conflict. We're teaching our children empathy on how to get along with one another, how to problem solve. And by doing this, I can see that the children are freer to concentrate on the academics because the social emotional problems are less than what they were before we had the conflict center.
We just had an incident that happened last week that involved 3 of our middle school boys. And 2 of our boys were from Africa, and they were refugee kids, and the other one was from Iraq. And the comment was made to him that he was a terrorist. This was the most hurtful thing they could have ever said to him, because terrorists had wiped out half of his family. His mother died, and he and his father and his brother had to flee the country because they were on a death list, a death watch list. And to call him a terrorist was the most wounding thing they could have done. And when the boys went to the conflict center and they were able to work it out and talk it out, and they were able to repair their relationship and work through it.
Adults need to respond to what is most important to kids, and for us in the education world, a lot of things are competing for what's important with their education, with what our duty is at that moment. So how we necessarily respond to what seems to be the most crucial thing to a child, social conflict, a social interaction, sometimes might be put aside a little bit.
DPS is moving toward the restorative approach because we've found that punitive doesn't work, but the conflict center, that it supports that restorative approach to give kids and adults tools that they can use for the rest of their lives to make the world a better place.
There's several different stories and situations with kids where I've just seen it says if the light bulb went off for them. I really believe that having the conflict center here has served to help kids identify that their behaviors were to the degree that they were really injuring or hurting someone in an emotional way. And there's been a great decrease in bullying since the conflict center has been here.
The Conflict Center and Restorative Justice, it's more than just restoring things. It's teaching kids how to deal with conflict. These conflicts are going to come up. How are we going to resolve them so we can all live together? But not just live together, but thrive. We want our kids to thrive, and these are life skills that you will need all through your life.
Hi, I'm Molly. I'm a student here at the Conflict Center. I take one class called Transforming Anger and Conflict into Allies. I always was running from conflict and became just way too uncomfortable with having to deal with conflict. When you have the right kind of tools and the right things that you can say and when you encounter conflict, it's not so bad because then you can solve the problem. As we stay educated about it, we can channel our energy into something a little bit more beneficial.
It's really helped me because I used to get really angry all the time, and now I'm just I'm calm and I can handle problems better than I thought I could when I was angry, and they come out with more positive solutions for everyone.
From the class, I really learned a lot. I never thought I had any problems with anger. Impact it has had, it's amazing. I put many of the skills to use, and they actually do work.
Would I recommend this? Absolutely. It changes the way you think, the way you look at people, the way you deal with people. And there is nothing more powerful than to have to sit in a peace circle and make amends for something that you have done to harm somebody else.
We all looked at the data a couple weeks ago from the conflict center, and I think that was really telling. It just had a list of all the things kids have learned, and it had that it had made a difference for almost every single kid. So I think that was really telling. That was cool to see.
I think it would be a wonderful program to have in other schools because I've seen it work firsthand, and because I know that there's a commitment in our district to really be looking at the whole child. It's a wonderful thing, and with 1,100 kids, it's very difficult to pull that off. So we appreciate all the help we've had from you all and would highly recommend the Conflict Center in any setting.
what we do here does make a difference, because the kids that come from our school are our future, and that's not trite, that's not anything. They will be our world leaders someday. And what we have done is going to have to take them and our own children, our own grandchildren into the future.
It's just a wonderful organization that I can always speak highly of. No matter where I'm at, it's like family.